Good afternoon, everyone. I will go ahead and call the June regular meeting of the Cobb County Board of Elections and Registration to order at 3 p.m. To my fellow board members, have each of you had an opportunity to review the agenda? And is there a motion to approve the agenda as drafted?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded to to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor? I note no opposition, but I also note the absence of Board Member Jessica Brooks for purposes of the minutes. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, public comment. I believe we only have one person that is speaking today. Ms. Reardon.
If I can see, I have my eyes dilated.
Well, please don't trip. We'll tell you when to step up. Step up.
Thanks. Okay. Good afternoon. Pamela Reardon. I'm a Cobb County resident, and these might help. I don't know if they will or not. Okay, so I belong to a lot of different groups, national groups, and analyze a lot of different aspects of elections. And one of them is the post office. And it seems like they're going to be getting or have gotten money, and it seems like they're going to step up their ability to track ballots. And as I understand it, just so you know, they say that the elections offices have to pay an extra fee in order to track ballots and to get them back if they're non-deliverable. And they have stated in a seminar a couple of weeks ago that they are really interested in having clean voter rolls because they want to have addresses that are legitimate and they don't deliver ballots to P.O. boxes. I mean, just as an example that I took out of my notes. And so it's maybe something that y'all should speak to each other about and the other people in the elections office. And I don't know, so it's non-deliverable if there's no address. And they don't forward it, right? Because that's not what they do with a ballot, an election mail from the elections office. So, and then they're supposed to return it. But I don't know, they didn't think that they always did that. I don't know if you always get that back. Just a note. I've also found out that the state board, or the Secretary of State is going to do their whatever, is it every 2 years, whatever that is, voter roll cleanup, maintenance, and it's going to be in August. And I asked them to clarify that more and saying, well, what do you do in between? And they say, these are their words. It is totally up to and responsible for the County Board of Elections and electors and elections department to clean the voter rolls in the county. So I'm just telling you that's what the Secretary of State's office has told me. And then I also inquired about the health checks that are upcoming and all the equipment that they're supposed to be doing. And I didn't get an answer back on my further question on when is it going to be done by the counties? Is it going to be in a separate warehouse? Is the Secretary of State going to do it, or is another company going to do it? So that is something that we still would like to get more information on. And we are more than happy to help with voter roll cleanup. We are looking at 3 different systems that will make your life easier, and there's going to be a lot of counties using those systems. So once we decide and get this further, it's in beta test, we will let you know, and I would love to work with you instead of against you in this aspect, because it's imperative that we have transparency and that we don't waste money sending continuously information out to people who don't live at the addresses, and especially ballots that people don't live at those addresses. So you know how to find me. I'm not with a group, but we do this all independently, just so you know.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
I actually do have one question, and it's non-substantive. You said we are looking at software, we are doing this, but then in the very
Yes,
last statement,
it's
you
not a
said
group.
we are not a group. So
Well, we're
who is
not
the
a
we?
group, we're not a formal group, we don't have an LLC, we're not a nonprofit, we haven't formed anything like that. It's just a group of citizens who are concerned and kind of work together and are looking at 3 different methods of doing it. And we would love to have some cooperation and back and forth with the board.
Okay.
All right.
So just to be, so that I can be clear, we is not a formal organization.
No.
We is a group of concerned
Yes,
citizens.
we
of
are
Cobb.
all concerned citizens of different aspects
Excellent.
and cultures and whatever. Okay?
you.
Thanks. All right, bye-bye.
I also want to note for the minutes that we were advised that there are no individuals that signed up to participate in public comment virtually. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the approval of our meeting minutes. We've had 3 meetings. Obviously, our normally scheduled May 8th, 2023 meeting, followed by 2 subsequent special called meetings. The minutes for each of these meetings are attached to your agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes? Yes. Does anyone have questions or comments with respect to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for each of the following dates: May 8th, 2023, May 24th, 2023, and June 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Gartland. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the meeting minutes for our May 8th, May 24th, and June 1st meetings. All those in favor? There is no opposition, and I further note that for meeting minute purposes that Ms. Brooks did not participate in that vote. Moving on to the next item of the agenda, new business. So we will, thank our audit department as led by Ms. Latona Thomas. You all will recall, and those that are present may recall, that during the last election cycle, we experienced a number of challenges with respect to our absentee ballot process. Following the conclusion of the special election, or the election as well, or the runoff election, and we indicated that we would talk with our Cobb audit department about them conducting a review. It was not an audit, it was a review of the absentee ballot process. Excuse me, myself, and at the time, Director Eveler, as she was still with us at that time, as well as other members of the Cobb County election staff, provided information to Ms. Thomas and her team, including, again, myself and board member Jennifer Mossbacher. And we have had a conversation with Ms. Thomas and her team to provide us with the results. We thought it necessary and appropriate to have some level of that presentation be provided to the entire board and obviously to members of the public. So Ms. Thomas, will you or your colleague be presenting? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Elections Board, and all of those in attendance, election staff. We had the privilege of providing some consulting services to the elections staff, particularly in the area of absentee voting. So I'll walk you through the high levels and answer any questions you might have. So to go through what we'll cover today, we'll cover the engagement scope, a little background, and then cover the summary of risk and recommendations, the overall impact, answer any questions that you might have. So the engagement scope really surrounded, we were there to assist election staff in evaluating their overall effectiveness and efficiency, hi, how are you, of the absentee voting process. We wanted to look and make sure they had adequate controls throughout the entire process. So our scope, we looked at the absentee voting transactions from January to March for the Mableton City elections. We did not look at the runoff elections, just this aspect. So as Chairwoman said, you may remember back in November 2022, there were issues with the absentee voting process. So we were engaged by the chair and Director Eveler at the time to come in and assist them. So a little background, we met on December 30th. That was our introductory meeting. We executed a consulting agreement. Then in January through March, we had various on-site visits. So every time there was a different phase of the process, we were there to observe actually their processes. And throughout February and April, we received different procedures, processes, reports, and we just reviewed those along with them throughout that process. We presented the report to Ms. Eveler and our elections manager before she left, Ms. Eveler left, and then we issued the final report. So we worked with them throughout that process. So just to give you a little background, some statistics of the Mableton election as it relates to absentee application and ballots. They received 226. Of course, you can see there were 40 rejected for missing information. One was unprocessed because the voter called and requested that it be canceled. We had 10 duplicates, and then 175 mailed, and they actually received and counted 136. 3 at the time were provisional, but they weren't cured. And excuse me, and we actually were there that night and counted and made sure the reports were uploaded correctly to the website. So we walked clearly through that process with them. So here's what we covered with them. Ideally, these are the risks and the recommendations that we looked at. First of all, an efficient use of resources. We've not covered all the other areas, but I can tell you, visiting with them, this is a complex operation. The whole absentee ballot, application and ballot is extremely complex. So one of the things we talked with them about and walked them through was an efficient use of resources. You're using a lot of full-time, part-time, and seasonal workers. So making sure you're efficiently using those resources to get the most optimum result. One of the other things was the reliability of information and reporting, and not just at the end, but throughout the process, right? Throughout every phase, can we rely on the information that's being gathered every day, every phase? Restricted access to voter information. You know, they just moved into a new building, so everybody takes the oath. They're working throughout the process, but still we want to make sure all the information applications are at the different phases are being restricted to only those that are working on it. Another area we talked with them about and worked with them is the equitable distribution of workloads. If you think about, Mableton was very small, but if you look at a general primary election, you could have thousands of absentee applications and ballots. So do you have enough people at the different phases at the appropriate time, right? To make sure there's no delay, to make sure you don't have some people that are being overworked and some not so much. Another one we looked at is the segregation of duties. So if I'm receiving applications, then I shouldn't be processing them at the same time, right? So making sure you have that, and they have very seasoned staff. They have staff that know what they do, but just making sure we have those controls so that nobody can come and question whether or not we did it appropriately, right? Another one is the timely identification of duplicate, missing, or incomplete applications. They do a great job getting that done, but at one point we saw a control worked. It actually worked, but it worked later in the process than we would have liked to see it. So that's one of the ones we talked through with them. Another one is the ballots that are not processed or mailed. You remember we had that issue in 2022. Well, you know, sometimes it's just a simple reconciliation at a point in time rather than at the end, right? So we're getting a report from the system, but reconciling it to other internal documents that we might have. Physical and operational safeguards. We say that very broadly because, like I said, it is a new building. So you want to make sure we always have the physical and operational safeguards, whether it's cameras and what have you, in place at all times. One of the things we also talked to them about was long-term sustainability and business continuity. When we were there, we know Director Eveler was leaving. We had a changeover in our absentee by mail supervisor position. We'd utilized quite a few seasonal people to do the job. And that's something we're asking, and we've talked to the chair about, and any new director coming in. Look at the long-term sustainability of just of the elections operations, its org chart. Is it sustainable long-term? Can it sustain a significant turnover in seasonal employees or in any particular area? Because the people that do the work love what they do, they know what they do, and quite a few of them have been there for a while, but what we don't want is that institutional knowledge to walk out the door and us not have anything in place. So the overall impact from our services, what did you get out of it? What did our stakeholders, what did election staff get out of it? And we've talked to them, and we love to hear their responses as well. We feel like the overall internal control environment over absentee will be stronger once they implement a lot of the recommendations and things that we've talked through. And then you all could have a greater confidence that absentee applications and ballots are properly accounted for, they're complete and accurate, they're processed timely and efficiently, and they're accurately reported in compliance with all the state, county laws, elections, and even your expectations. So that just wraps up everything we went through. I believe their election staff had no issues with anything we talked through with them and recommended, because we worked with them. This was not an audit, us coming in saying you did this wrong, and this was us working with them, engaging them the entire way. So we appreciate and thank elections team, because they were in the middle of an election. Not only that, they were in the middle of an upgrade to their system by the Secretary of State, right? So we did have some issues with that, delayed our on-site a couple of times. I see Erica smiling. But we worked through that process with them. We were in the elections office at different times and dates, and even late Friday evening sometime, but whatever phase it was in, we were there to observe. So we appreciate their time and effort, and we appreciate you seeking us out and seeking our assistance. So I'll answer any questions you might have at this time. Sure.
Turn your mic on, please.
Did you produce a report that identifies all of the reports that should be done as you go along, or a list?
Not all the reports. What we did have is a list of the recommendations and their responses that we have that, and we've met with them and gone over it with them, but not specific reports that they should be generating.
Okay. I'm trying to understand what tools come out of this effort that will be used in the future, and
It's voluminous, I can tell you, because in a lot of cases there wasn't anything in place, or if they had something manually, we were recommending that it be automated. For instance, if you were pulling a report from email, generate an automated report. Generate an automated report from the fax system, and then reconcile that to your internal report. I believe the board gets a daily report or so, reconciling that to those documents to make sure you can accurately account for where an application is throughout the entire phase.
but did you put that into a report?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Can we have a copy of it?
So that report will be provided to you.
To you,
I
right.
wanted to, and if you don't mind.
No, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
wanted to provide a high-level overview.
Your mic.
Thank you. Wanted to provide a high-level overview, but yes, I will ensure that that report is provided to the entire board. And then with regard to the recommendations, these are very, again, high-level recommendations.
Right.
And I want to be clear, and I believe Ms. Thomas made this was not an audit. It was a review of the processes during the course of obviously a much
Consulting.
smaller election,
Right.
so that we could identify gaps and opportunities for improvement. Exactly. And what we now anticipate doing, based upon those recommendations, obviously, we need to we're focused on getting the absentee ballot manager position filled and have her or him, whomever is
Right.
hired, be a part of the implementation of any of those recommendations with respect to the automation
Right.
and the use of tools. So that's where we're presently.
And that's going to be critical, that you give that person an opportunity
Sure.
to bring their team
I'm-
on and
I'm
do
just
that.
concerned, we had 1,000 ballots that weren't mailed. Where is your recommendation as to how that's going to not happen in the future?
You'll actually see that when we talked about the timely identification of ballots not processed mailed or processed mailed in error, you'll actually see that.
Okay,
We've addressed
good.
that.
Great.
That was very critical. That was one of our late Friday evening on-site visits to observe how that happened.
Okay.
And again, I'm available to answer any specific questions that you might have or to meet with you individually. I'll be happy to do that.
Great.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, again, thank you, Ms. Thomas, for
It was our
your
pleasure.
and your team's diligence. And I also want to thank our election staff. Obviously, there are a lot of things going on. We were in the midst of preparing for Director Eveler's transition to retirement, obviously a Mableton election, and for us to place the additional ask or task on you to meet with Ms. Thomas and her team. I personally appreciate your taking the time to do so.
And
the
I
subsequent
should have
meetings.
said thank you to my team.
Yes.
I have accompanied here Marguerite Benevento, one of our senior auditors, and our two division managers they couldn't be here, they're away at training. So, but it was all hands on deck because we wanted to get it done in just a small amount of time. But thank you, and thank you to my team for a great job.
Yep. I also commend you for a great job, and we will be reaching out for additional reviews.
Okay, great, thank you.
That concludes the new business. I just want to open up the floor to my colleagues. Is there any old business that requires our attention? Yes. Mhm. Board member comments? Okay. That concludes the public portion of this meeting. Our next scheduled regular meeting will take place on July the 10th, 2023. I do want to kind of circle back to board member comments and just speak about two of our board members, at least to the extent I've had an opportunity to work with the two of you over the past 2 years. So at the conclusion of this month, both Pat Gartland and Ms. Brooks, Jessica Brooks, will conclude their final term on the Board of Elections. Correct me if I'm incorrect. I believe each of you have served two four-year terms, so a pure total of 8 years. Yes, maybe?
Not quite.
Not quite, okay.
Mine
We're-
were consecutive, his were.
His were not, okay. But at any rate, whatever that term was and whatever manner in which you served, I greatly appreciate first and foremost your diligence in how you have represented and been an advocate on behalf of the voters of Cobb County. You're helping me facilitate my transition onto this board and my education. And I am truly hopeful that each of you will continue to be a resource. I at least have your phone numbers and will be giving you a call. And I will be mindful of the new baby, the new granddaughter that is, we're 10 days away?
About 10 days.
10 days away? Okay. I'll be mindful of that. And I will text only, and hopefully you'll get back to me as grandmother duty permits. So, but thank you, each of you, for your service on the board and most importantly to the Cobb County voters. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add.
I'd just like to say ditto to those comments. It's been great working with Jessica and with Pat, and we'll miss you both and wish you the best. And thanks for all your time and effort. And I personally have appreciated it, and good luck. Thank you.
And your work is not done. Today is just the last in-person meeting, but your terms do not end until June 30th, and there is work yet to be done between now and then, so I definitely appreciate it. Do either of you have anything to say? Not to put you on the spot, but I don't want to foreclose the opportunity for you to.
Just thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
I think I wanted to say a little bit more. I had a few more specific thank yous. As the Democratic appointee, I wanted to thank all of the Democratic chairs that had initially appointed me and chosen to continue to appoint me. I'm very, very pleased with so many things that have occurred in the last 8 years. I have looked at several compositions of boards, and we're the best here. I say that. I know that Phil and others are watching, perhaps, or if they're not watching now, they will be watching in the future. But it has been a great opportunity and a great honor to serve on this board and to learn the things that I have learned from each one of the board members. So I wanted to just take advantage of this opportunity to say thank you to all. Staff is absolutely fabulous. I've watched people come and go and work hard, more than anyone could possibly imagine. The time and the commitment that it takes to get this job done, and done really well, and done up to as close as we could possibly get to the standards that our state code has set for us. So thanks again to everyone.
Thank you. So
Ditto.
I think that's just indicative how well we've worked together over the last 2 years. So with that, I do believe that there are matters to discuss in executive session with respect to personnel. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Gartland. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. All those in favor? And there is no opposition. So per usual, for those of you that have joined us here, we will move into executive session. We'll just ask that you vacate the premises. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to conclude executive session.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Gartland.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. It's been moved and properly seconded to conclude and come out of executive session. All those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And with, yes?
I think Jessica should be noted as
You want
the
me,
seconder.
you want that to be my second?
Yes, please amend the meeting minutes such that the motion was made by Mr. Gartland and it was seconded by Ms. Brooks in their last
There you go.
activity.
Regular meeting.
Regular meeting activity, but the motion passes, and with that, we will adjourn our June meeting, regular meeting at 4:28 PM. And I thank each of you for your active participation today.
Thank you. Got it.